I'd like to welcome you back to another episode of A Chat with Anita and Matt. We've got some really interesting things this week where Matt and I have been talking about this just before we came on, and the key word is trust. So I'm going to turn this over to Matt so he can set up this discussion and we'll take it away from there.
Yeah, trust. I thought this was interesting because we had that conversation with Melissa Love last week, and she mentioned trust a couple of times. And I told her that I had heard something quite different from previous conversations with other people who said, oh yeah, you're not supposed to, like, trust is not a word that the gurus use or online marketers use. And I was kind of curious, like, well, why is that? And she gave me this explanation, didn't quite, fit with how I thought things should be. Because in the real world, when you're selling to folks, trust is everything. Like, people buy from people they trust. And you need to, once you build up some trust, then you can maybe offer them some solution. But we don't buy from people that we don't trust. And this other individual I spoke to has years of digital marketing experience says, oh, well, we don't use that, use that word. But Melissa used it, and, she has vast experience. So I thought maybe we should kind of unpack this a little bit, or, talk more about the trust issue in digital marketing.
Yeah, because I actually was on, I think it was a webinar for just private members group for this one group I'm a part of. And they brought up the term trust deficit as a concept in digital marketing, and how it's the exact same thing you talked about that Melissa mentioned as well. And that is, when we trust people, we buy from them because we hope, I think at an innate level, that they're going to help us, that there's at least our best interest is somewhere factored into there. So trust deficit in digital marketing, like, they didn't go into too much about it, but I thought it was a fascinating concept, especially in light of what we talked about last week. And I fully agree that I need to trust somebody before I'm going to turn my money over to them and see how they can help me. So what do you think, Matt? Where do you sit on this? Do you side more with Melissa or with this other guy that you were talking with?
I don't know. I'm still working through it. It seems to me that, like you, I've followed so many, gurus, we call them gurus here, just, people selling you stuff and telling you how to do digital marketing. And those are the people I don't ever hear the word trust said when they're mentioning sales. But I'm getting to an age, I think, or, to a level of experience that I've got to set all that aside. And I'm just looking back to the folks that have decades of experience. So, the folks I follow, the Jim Rohns, I'm a big fan of T. Harv Eker. And Harv Eker is another one that trust. That's when he's teaching people, how do you get people's attention? How do you get them to buy the solution you might have? Trust is major in how he describes it. So maybe it's just not a generational thing, but maybe those who have years of, many years careers as marketers in the business world know that trust is important. And those who started in the digital marketing world, maybe that's their only experience, just don't use that phrase so much.
Yeah, it's interesting because these guys, I believe one of them is in maybe mid to late 20s. And the other one might just be around 30-ish, slightly over 30. They're still fairly young. They've grown a very successful business. So I believe into the 7 or low 8-figure range. Like, they have done exceptionally well for themselves. And yet they believe that people need to trust you. That when you say you're going to deliver something, you're actually going to deliver it. Instead of, I always drag up this example of this guru, and I went through his webinar funnel, and it was over several days. And toward the end, he was talking about this one bonus that I really wanted. I thought this would be fascinating. There were supposed to be weekly calls that were live with him that he would be answering the questions. So I paid I believe it was $2,000 for this course, got into the material right away, and there was some great stuff. So I'm not saying that there wasn't, but I was really looking forward to this bonus. I put it in my calendars once they sent out the notification, and I asked some questions. And I was, even hopped on the call early just to make sure I was there. And then there was just this person trained by this guru who was facilitating the call. And I thought, okay, it's summer. I get it. I believe it was like August. Maybe he's on holiday. So I went along with the call. It was okay. It wasn't what I had expected. And then the next day I sent a message to their customer service. And I was like, so what's with this? Like, when is he coming on? Because that's really what made me decide that I wanted to purchase this program. And they said, oh, well, that's our evergreen webinar funnel, and we don't offer that. You get once a month with this trained person, and you get your questions answered there. And that was it. And not only that, they didn't even bother to try to fix the situation in any way. They just left it there like that was my problem. And so I didn't trust anything that comes out of his mouth anymore. I, cut off all the email communications. I just went through the course and I've stopped. I no longer am a customer. I'm unsubscribed from all his lists because I don't trust what he says he will actually deliver. And that was really painful. I was quite kind of like you said, Matt, still working through your feelings on this trust issue. That's what it was for me. Several days of working out what happened, how I felt about it, and how this was going to impact me and my business as I moved forward. And that is the most striking example that I've come across or I've experienced recently, where the trust was broken and I never bothered to try to fix it or overcome it. I just left it, walked away.
I think this is happening everywhere, on all these lists, people are walking away. Let me ask you, if you would have received a call from his team, let's say you unsubscribed, you left, if somebody from would have called and said, well, Anita, I noticed you left, like, why? Would you have taken the time to say all this, or would you have been like kind of embarrassed and not?
No, I'm usually pretty forward, and I had actually written that out in my email to them, that I was disappointed. It promised this. Of course, I didn't have the video, right? Like, why would I be recording the video that they're sending me? And I think they were like, gosh, like one every day before the cart closed. It was, a really heavy push for this product. So I didn't record it, but I tried to say, well, on day whatever, and it was this particular video, this is what was mentioned. And no, they didn't take it any further. And I think I would have felt a lot better. You're right, Matt. If they had said, hey, could we talk to you about this and learn more and see how we can improve so other people don't wind up in this situation. I think, though, what happened is I'm such an anomaly or an outlier that, how many people have complained about this? Probably nobody. Maybe I'm one of the first. So it didn't seem like it was really worth their while to do much about it.
Yeah, but okay. So this happens all the time in the real, I keep calling it the real world, but just in our everyday, there's some restaurant that was our favorite restaurant, and then they changed managers and the food got worse, and then we walked away. Or, we loved our cell phone provider, but then they, service got bad and this and that, they walked away. Or somebody cutting our lawn or whatever, and we just, told them not to come back. I mean, this happens all the time. We don't like it. We don't like to leave. It's our favorite place. It's our favorite, service provider, but they just did something. It just kind of crossed the line, and we left. Almost nobody ever gets a call back. Like, aren't you interested that I left? Now I know when I leave my bank, there's one bank that we left, our checking, our savings, our business account, all my employees were doing their business with them, our home mortgage. Like, over the course of 6 months, we moved everything away from this bank. They never knew, so we're just used to that. Like, I just left, all those hundreds of thousands of dollars are gone. They don't notice. But I feel like in the digital marketing world, when it's so personal, it's me teaching you, and it's you taking, seeing a video of somebody else, that we got to really step this up. That's not good enough to just have people leave and not know that they left. Or if they did leave, well, that's just people leave. To me, that's just not acceptable in this format that's so personal.
Mm-hmm. I think, coming back to the trust bit, that perhaps this is one of the reasons why people leave, is they've had some experience. But if you're right, if we don't ask, we won't know what those things are. And I remember hearing they call it churn rate, how quickly people are coming in and leaving, and they focus on those metrics. But you're right. How many of them are saying, okay, our churn rate is very high this month or this quarter, whatever period they're looking over? Why not go and ask? And then perhaps it is an issue of trust. Well, you guys were saying this and you weren't delivering on it. And so I don't feel comfortable buying from you anymore or following you anymore. Instead, what we've done, and I think that this is not just in digital marketing, but given that that's where we primarily operate, what we've done instead is just come up with different tactics. Let's just whip out yet another tactic and see if we can lower that churn rate and get people to stay a little longer and squeeze a little more value out of every interaction we have with them. Yeah. Instead of just, like you said, what about going old school? Picking up the phone, calling, and finding out what's really going on, because maybe there's a really big issue that just isn't apparent because we're so busy looking at numbers and being in the business of producing content or trying to give value and help out, that we don't stop to go, oh, wait a minute, what was that? I didn't even know that was a problem.
Yeah.
That's huge.
And I'm sure everyone listening has an example of that in their own lives where they left bad review with somebody, or they stormed out of some place because they're really treated unfairly, or something negative happened, and then they got a call or a follow-up, and then they just went, oh, well, this is what, and now they gave you a chance to kind of unload, and you felt better, and that person said, well, would you like to, here's dinner's on us, or why don't you come back? And you did, and then you became like their biggest fan now. It's like, wow, they heard me, they listened to me. And why aren't we doing that in the digital marketing world? If somebody leaves or unsubscribes, or, I know you're not supposed to contact them, but I reach out to those people because I always have. I mean, my motto is keep your customers forever. And that's where my focus is, on the people that are already here, keeping them with you, your best customers forever. But I don't see as much of that. I see a lot of lead generation, and how do you get more leads? How do you get more people into your funnel? How do you get more attention? How do you get more eyeballs? Well, that's here at the start. That's great. Now what? Now they're your customers. They're in your courses, and they're in your, have learned something from you. How do you keep them? Well, not just keep sending them, oh yeah, well, I'm gonna send them 2 emails a week and keep them warm, but how do you really keep, have them focus solely on you? And that's where I like to be, is in the retention part. Once they're here, they're in my world, they're taking one of my courses or seeing my webinar, I want them, I'm the guy that can answer the questions in my little niche in the world. I'm the guy. You need to come to me. And how do I keep those people? So I think there just needs to be so much more focus on your customers you have now, and not so much on the churn. Hey, we lost this, let's just bring in that. And that's just an endless game that the big players can do. I mean, the banks that didn't see me leave, they can play that game all day long. They've got tens of millions of dollars. We don't. We need to keep every customer that we have.
Absolutely. And God, I had so many different thoughts go through my mind, Matt, while you were talking, and of course now they've kind of flown out. I think the thing, and you hit on it right, and that is focus on the customers we have. I was actually reading, where is it? Sorry, I'm looking around the room because I just put it down. The E-Myth Revisited by Michael E. Gerber. And I'm
reading the same book right now. I thought I was the only person on earth that hadn't read that. And so I'm so embarrassed. So I started reading it a couple of weeks ago.
I just finished it, actually. And I always take notes. I'm going to just show my little system here for anybody that's interested. This is not his book. This is another book. But what I do is when I'm reading, I just grab these little tabs, stick it where I need, and then continue on so I'm not breaking up my flow. And then what I do is I sit down. Usually takes me about 40 minutes, and I open the book up to each of these tabs and I type out. And it's like it really gets it into my head. So one of the things I typed out today, right before this show, was about that. McDonald's, Disney, and he gave another example, I think it was FedEx, saying how much money they spend on really wowing their customers so they stay loyal. Like, you got to think Disney can keep some of these people from 3-4 years old well into their 80s, 70s, and people still love the brand. They love the experience of Disney, and Disney has been one of the best examples. I'm sure there are tons of other ones. But you're right, like, they focus on the customers they have because they can always get more from them than trying to reach out to a brand new customer who may or may not stay with them, who may or may not resonate with what they're trying to do. We forget that. We forget it so quickly and easily. So that's a point I wanted to make, but also wanted to go back, Matt. What happened when you would reach out to some of these people? I'm really curious. You got to close this loop here and give us some examples of what people said or how they reacted when you reached out to them.
Oh, well, this goes way back. This goes back to, late 90s, maybe early, 15, 16 years ago. I ran a company that did course evaluations for universities and colleges primarily. But the big issue was response rate. How do you get people to fill out these forms? It's the same issue we have today. How do we get people to fill out surveys? And in my world, and in these training organizations and universities, you needed to get 60, 70, 80% of people to fill out these forms, or they wouldn't consider them. In the survey world, we're like, wow, I got 10% of people to fill out a survey. That's awesome. No, that's not awesome at all. 60 or 70%. So we would go back and ask those who didn't respond. And it was really hilarious because I got a lot of funding to do this because there was other agencies interested in this. And we have people, fill out what was essentially a survey. And then if you didn't fill out, we would go back to those people and say, hey, why didn't you fill out that survey? So it was essentially a survey to ask why you didn't fill out the other survey. And it was hilarious because we had just hundreds and hundreds of people would fill these out, and they would tell us why they didn't bother filling it out the first time. But one of the big things.
Why? I'm so curious now. Why? What were some of the reasons they gave?
Well, the first thing we discovered was that we were missing it. And this is the lesson I even teach to this day. When you send out a survey and you get 5 or 10% of people to fill it out, and then you act on those results, that is a major mistake, because we discovered, and you would know this yourself, people that fill out these things are the extremes, right? They really love what you're doing, or they really want to teach you a lesson, and they have something angry to say. What about all the 80 or 90% in the middle? That's where all the gold is. And that's who you're not hearing from. And that's what we discovered 15, 16 years ago, was the people who we didn't survey were very different. Their responses, if we would have known what they said, we would have taken different action because they were so different than those that did respond. But they invariably gave the same sorts, I won't say invariably, but I think the popular things they were saying is, when we followed up, they said, what I wanted to know was that my voice was heard. I know when I fill these things out, who knows? They go in a drawer, I'm sure they help you improve your products and services, but who cares? I'm not using your product anymore. They want to know, is this going to make a difference? Like, I would fill it out if I knew that somebody was going to read this and this was going to make a difference in some way. And they're just tired of, you asking people, hey, fill out my survey, help me improve my products and services. That is so lame. They want to know who is this going to help? Am I going to help anybody in this world by taking my time, 5 minutes of my life that I will never get back on planet Earth? I'm giving this gift to you. What are you going to do with it? Who is this going to help? What is this going to change? And when we came back and asked them, it was that first step of them going, oh, check it out. I didn't respond. Somebody noticed. So they are listening. And then from there, we were able to build upon that, to the point that we could get 95% of people to fill out the same survey over time because we kept demonstrating to them that their voice was heard. I think it goes to the trust issue.
Yep. I was just going to say,
well.
Yeah, it really does, doesn't it? Because now you've established that what you say you're going to do, you're actually doing. They can trust that if they're, like you said, they're going to take their time, which is extremely valuable, and help you out, that they actually are making an impact. There's nothing worse than when you take your time and they give you, 30 questions to fill out and then nothing. Yeah. You don't hear anything back. It's awful. Whereas we like reciprocity, right? So if I'm going to help you, I at least would like to know how what I said made a difference. Just demonstrate that to me, even in a small way, so that I can go, okay, I feel good about what I did. Not that I didn't feel good about it without that feedback, but that feedback just affirms, makes you feel even better, right?
And I incorporated it into my webinars as well. If you sign up for one of my webinars, I ask a couple of questions when you register. It might be, what stage are you in your business? Or, what's one reason you're going to attend the webinar? Something that they could easily respond to. But when that webinar starts, first slide, I say, I heard you. And on the slide, I say, 36% of you said this and 24% said that. And here are 10 of the funniest things I heard you say, bing, 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 bing. Here's 5 of the most interesting things. So I'm demonstrating them. I call it closing the loop. I'm sharing the results with them. And they're like, aha. And that's step one. Step one, I told them, if you'll fill this out, I'll share what others have said about these same questions. And then I follow through. And I hadn't really thought about it in those terms of trust, but that's essentially what I'm doing here, demonstrating their voice was heard, that they made a difference, and then I follow through on that promise.
Yeah, which if you think about it, let's cut to the chase here, right? The point of the webinar is to get them to purchase something at the end, right? Well, if you've established that trust right back in the beginning by saying, hey, thank you so much for filling this out. This is what I heard you say. This is who you are as a population attending. Well, that trust is established right from the start. So I would think then as you go through, it just builds, because you keep building on that initial trust that you establish right from the first slide. Maybe that's better than all of these tactics that we stack at the end, like things like bonus stacking, as a way then to try to persuade people to trust that you're going to actually deliver what you're promising. I like it.
Yeah, I think it's done so wrong, and so many webinar attendance is way down. Sales on webinars are way down. It's because they're just falling into the same cycles of everything else. We say marketers always ruin everything, and they have here as well, because they're teaching people, well, here's how you do these webinars, and we watch what they do, and what they do is right here's the title of the webinar. I'm going to deliver 50% more of something or other, and then you get to the content, and that's not what's delivered. And then they'll say, well, I'll teach you a couple of steps. And then it's like, well, you want to know the rest of the steps? Here's the course they can teach you. And you're like, so it's the opposite of trust. You said, this is what I'm going to teach you. Then you didn't do that. And now unsubscribe, now you're going down the other path. And now it's so hard that once you've done that to bring people back. You want to start out with the trust right from the get-go, because there's not much room for error. I don't know how you bring those people back once you've broken that trust.
And I don't think you can. I think that's where the tactics come in, like some of those smoke and mirror tactics. That one webinar I attended, that only later did I realize there was absolutely no content in it. It was just all flash and hype and, get you really excited about purchasing this product that I didn't even know was good for me. Interestingly, before I went on that webinar, I tried to search about this guy, and there was just a handful of things on the internet. There wasn't much at all. And so I went in there with a not really positive feeling. I was, quite guarded. And then when I got on this webinar, this is a different one, I should say, from the one I cited earlier, but it was all hype and smash #1 if you agree, and la la la. It was crazy, and I got caught up in the emotion of that. I was very new to the digital marketing world too. It had only been 6 months, and I think I'd been on 3 webinars, hardly anything. So I didn't know that it could be done differently. Like now I'm so curious about our audience. What are they experiencing? What have they experienced in the past? And now that we've talked about this and you've given actual step-by-step for the first part of a webinar, how different would that be? How, not only in terms of how they feel versus, like you've said in the past, trying to get this fake, where is everybody from, and trying to get them engaged that way, but instead really genuinely saying, hey, listen, I heard you, here are the results. Let's get into this. And I'm showing you that, yes, you can trust me because I already did what I said I was going to do before we started.
Yeah, absolutely. And so another thing I thought about was with courses. I could talk some more about webinars, but I just want to throw in, the same trust in terms of courses, because to me, if you're teaching a course, I can't help but, I'm a former professor, so I think of, being in the classroom. If you're teaching your students, you are teaching your students and you're getting their questions. You hold office hours, of course, and these students are with you forever. Once the course is over, well, the next semester, they see you and you're helping them out writing letters of recommendation, or even years down the road, students are still contacting you. So in my world, to be a teacher of a course is really a long-term responsibility, but you don't see that in most online courses. There's a few that do it really well. Most just don't, because you sign up for somebody's course, you're in there, and then there's the material. It might be dripped out to you and you review it. But of all the courses I've taken, it's really hard for me to think of any instructor that's actually written to me personally. Like, hey, Matt, course is drawing to a close, or I see you finished all the material, anything you want to, so there's not that much interaction. And I know the platforms are horrible. Like they kind of block that. A lot of the popular platforms don't allow a lot of student and teacher interaction. So there's some obstacles there as well. But again, if I'm paying you money for a course, I have some expectations of what this relationship is. And when that's broken, I feel a little let down as well.
I think too with this that there's the self-guided courses where you just buy the material and you go through on your own and there's no support. That's what I had ended up building, and I still sell that course. I'll be honest with you, I'm not a fan of it either. But back when I built it, I took a course by one of these gurus who teaches you how to build a course, and I realized all I did was build her course with my content, and I couldn't sell it. Why? Because I couldn't stand behind it. Her values and beliefs and systems were all baked into that entire process, and they didn't align with mine. I agree with you about the course thing. One of the things, at least in the digital world, is when you buy courses, especially some of these people who are selling courses and bringing hundreds of people in at a time, are the Facebook groups that are there usually with some sort of moderation so that, they try to keep it on track. But there's one in particular, I think, where she's done a really good job of making sure she still shows up in the group a couple times a week. The one that you and I met in, Matt, we had both bought the same course. Matt and I met in one of these Facebook groups where he posted something. And that guru, I think, never even, the whole time I was there, I never saw this person show up once. He was absent the whole time. There wasn't even really any moderation at that point, I think, except for when they pulled down your post. I think that was pretty much it. It becomes a bit of a challenge with an online course. I've gone back and forth, like, should I redo this course or just leave it? I've chosen to leave it for the time being. If somebody buys it, they'll still get value out of it, but I'm not, I'm certainly not really proud of that product, and I really want to improve in the future. But yeah, how do we continue the relationship from these courses when people are done? Facebook groups are one way that people are doing it. I know sometimes they're pulled into membership groups as well, but yeah, I'm not sure. Matt, do you have any other ideas of how that can be built from there?
Yeah, I mean, it's, as you're saying that, I was thinking of, I've got a couple of courses that Udemy took. So Udemy is a big monster platform, but now they grab your course and they sell it to huge blocks of folks in business, and they sell it for like, 10 cents or something, so I'm embarrassed about that. I can't pull that course down, and there's people that are just taking it, but it's just an informational thing because it's not mine anymore. I don't have ownership of it. But if I were to start a new course, I don't know, I just have that sense of, you want to have people communicating with one another. Facebook is, one way a lot of folks go. I'm not a big Facebook fan. I'd love to see these tools have more interaction within them as well. But just some recognition, I think. Maybe a first start is just recognition from the instructor. Like, there's one guru who I really love his work. I think I've taken maybe 4 courses from this individual and spent a lot of money, relatively, I think, compared to a lot of students. But I've never heard from this person. Like, I've never received an email, a call, a thanks, it's just the standard stuff. You register and you get kicked back the auto email. I'm still going to listen, but if somebody else came along, I'd probably focus on them. And there's a fellow that I listen to a lot, Ray Edwards. He's somebody that really does things right, I think. Like, you're in his course. I don't know if I have it handy here. I got a little gizmo from him in the mail the other day, this kind of Rubik's Cube thing that I can't figure out how to get it back together. That's part of the course. But you get a set of materials from him every month. And he experiments with a lot of engaging things, sending things to people's homes. I've seen some other instructors do that as well. It's costly. I mean, it's an added cost, but if you're thinking lifetime value of a customer, then it makes total sense. And that's how they think about it. It's like, okay, well, I'm not going to make a profit on this course because I'm spending it, sending, funny gizmos and holding extra office hours and doing Zoom calls to answer people's questions that they've had on the course material. But they're not looking at the course is just the trust building part of it. And I'll be with this person for as long as they teach, because that trust has been built. And I know this is the person I can go to for the answers that I have in this niche. And so I don't know, that it's just another way of thinking about it. Building that trust takes time, and of course that takes money. But what's your goal? To keep people forever, or just get involved in the churn and just keep trying to replace people that leave?
I think that's a great place actually to leave this off, because we can go into the next little bit, which I want to discuss what are ways that we can keep our customers forever and keep those discussions going. Again, Michael E. Gerber in the E-Myth Revisited talks about these companies, Disney being one of the best. What do they keep doing to keep these people loyal really for a lifetime, genuinely for a person's entire life? How are they wowing them? That customer experience is just through the roof. So what can we do? And sometimes it gets a little tough because you're like, well, I don't have a theme park and I don't have this and I don't have that. Well, they didn't either when they started. Right? He had a cartoon mouse and they built the experience. And this is what I'm starting to think as well. as I establish that trust and that people can rely on me to do what I say I'm going to do, how can I just start slowly edging this up so each time we have an interaction, they're actually more surprised by it than they were the last time, and it genuinely moves them forward. So certainly a great discussion for one of our next episodes. Any last thoughts, Matt, before we wrap this up?
Yeah, I mean, this just all ties into how do you want to be remembered? I mean, a lot of, you left your job, maybe you're starting this, you're running low on funds, you're getting, like money is a huge deal. So you think, well, I got to get something out there. I got to get some money in. Well, okay, take care of the financial emergencies and that sort of thing. But keep in mind, this is long term. How do you want to be remembered 10 years from now, 15, 20 years from now? All the non-trustworthy people are going to be vanished, and the only ones left are those we trust. Both 20 years from now, think 100 years from now, you're long gone, and you think of the people that we still remember. I want to be one of those people. I want to be one of those people that folks trusted, and not because I can teach them a lot of stuff, because I can't, but in a couple of little niches, I want to be the guy that people go to, for this bit of wisdom. And so thinking long-term in that thing, I think just helps me focus on the here and now.
That's awesome. I'm really excited by this discussion again, and where we're heading with this. So as always, like, comment, subscribe, especially the comment bit. We really want to find out. Again, like, we've talked so many things in this particular episode, but what have been your experiences? How would you, do your next webinar differently given the techniques that Matt talked about? Where has your trust been broken in the online world? How do you build trust with your customers or clients? Like, there's so many different things we can talk about, and what you say helps us to, on our other episodes with the topics that we bring. So we want to know, and we want to be able to close the loop and say, hey, this is what we've heard from you. And so please do comment, subscribe, and also if you're on YouTube, hit that notification button so that when a new episode is posted every week, that you can be notified. Both Matt and I, you can find us on LinkedIn. He's at, is it Matt or Matthew Champagne?
I think it's under Matt Champagne on LinkedIn. Yeah, write me there. But when you write feedback, I like to hear we call it constructive feedback as well. Both the good and the bad, bring it on. If you're one of my students that took a Udemy course and you're like, yeah, Champagne never showed up for this thing, that's fine. Let me hear it. So all feedback is welcome, of course.
Yeah, that's great. And I fully agree. I'm on LinkedIn as Anita Toth or Anita M. Toth. Geez, it's so weird, eh? We should know our calls to action, but either way, you'll be able to find us. So thank you. Thank you very much for joining us. And we look forward to our next episode. Take care. Bye for now.